I am Richard, and I am the owner at RC Outdoor. We specialize in the entire outdoor living experience, and I am a hardscaper.
Let's get started here to get to know a little bit more about yourself and your business, starting with how did you get into hardscaping?
So that's a good question. It's kind of a long answer. I mean, I am 36, and I've just recently started my business last summer. So I guess going back to my roots, I mean, I was born and raised in the South, from Mississippi. I went to Mississippi State University and studied landscape design. Actually, initially went to study landscape architecture, and then about a year or two in, switched over to landscape contracting and management, which pretty much is just a degree that helps you in design as well as management. You actually get your business minor, so it prepares you to open up your own landscape business. So from there, out of college, I went to Charleston, South Carolina. Worked with Valley Crest Company. They're a maintenance company, and I think they joined with Brickman Group and started Brightview. But anyways, out of college, I don't know why, but I just felt like maintenance was the way to go. That was where the jobs were, and so that's kind of where I went. And I'd always had this creative side about me, and really wanted to pursue more than just maintenance, because the maintenance side just bored me to death. Didn't really want a career in it, but just knew that was where the money was, and so that was where I was at. So while I was there in Charleston, we tried, my brother and I, to open up a business on the side, doing some landscape installs, and that really didn't go anywhere. And I was there for probably 5 to 6 years, and I met a girl who's now my wife, and so we've since moved up to northern Indiana. We're in the South Bend, Indiana area, and got a job as a landscape designer up here. And I was with them for about 5 years until I started my own company. And while I was with them, a lot about the hardscapes, the whole outdoor living experience. And that was something I was really passionate about, and that interest grew into, designing and building some really cool jobs. And there I had a couple of crews that I was over. And so like I said, I was there for 4 or 5 years, and then just jumped right into my own business because I love the hardscapes. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to do something different with something I worked with. We were more into the maintenance, more into snow plowing. So a lot of things added to the next. This happened, that happened, and I started my own business. So that's kind of where I'm at now, about a year and a half in. And so we do primarily hardscapes, and that's kind of my passion. The whole outdoor living experience is what we're about at RC Outdoor.
Now, what kind of prompted that move of yours, and did you notice like a major difference in the industry compared to the two different places that you were?
Yeah, so what prompted that? I'm hoping I get the story right, but I think it was last year, so it would have been 2018 in January. I went to actually my first Techo-Block showcase conference, and was new to the Techo-Block brand. The area that I'm in, is actually Unilock country. Chicago is one of the big areas, and so a lot of the guys, 99% of the guys here, are doing Unilock. And anyways, went to my first Techo-Block show, and I heard Paper Pete for the first time, and he kind of set a fire inside of me. I mean, I left there thinking like, wow, there's a lot more to this than I originally thought. And so he mentioned a book in one of his presentations, and it was about starting your own business. And I just, from there, I just wanted to start my own business pretty much when I left that show. And but the funny thing is, that was down in Indianapolis. And so 2 weeks later, we were doing another show. Techo-Block was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And the only reason I went there is to catch the name of that book that he had mentioned. And so went there, called the name of the book, bought the book that night, read that book front to back. I mean, a couple of days. And it was, I'm trying to think of the name. It was by Marty Grunder, and it was 9 Simple Steps to Successful Entrepreneurship. I may have butchered that name, but that seems about right. And so I read that book, and then I read another book, and then another book. And from there, I just like I said, just fire within me, and I just wasn't going to take no for an answer. I just knew I had to start my business. I had to figure out a way to do that. So I had some contacts up here that I pretty much went and chatted with. I was like, hey, and so these contacts are in the construction business and the design business in this area, and they were doing a lot of remodels for homes in our area. And I said, hey, I'm looking to go into business. If you could tell anybody that you know, like that I'm going into business, I want to do patios, I want to do retaining walls, outdoor kitchens, fire pits, pergolas, whatever. Pretty much just trying to get my name out. Went to nurseries, telling them, hey, this is what I'm doing. Just trying to get the word out as much as possible. So that was kind of my first plan of action. And that was probably a month after that last Techo-Block show that I went to. And I think it was like maybe 3 months later I started my business. Because pretty much I got in a job that was a pretty large job. I think it was, I think it took me like 2.5 months. So that was a job worth quitting. That project was a job worth quitting my current job with. So I put in my 2 weeks notice and went headfirst into this huge project. So that's kind of what prompted me, and that's what brought me into where I'm at now.
Let's get into that a little bit more here, because you talked about, you know, the steps you took to start your own business, and then getting that first job and getting this, you know, large scale job. Starting with what was the most important or the key things to, you know, getting that first job? Because, you know, starting off a business is difficult, taking that plunge is difficult, but getting those first jobs, especially when you have a job and you're wanting to quit that job to pursue this business full time, it's difficult. But what was that thing for you that really helped you get those first jobs and helped you quit your work?
So, kind of a funny story, but the first job that I got at my current position, where I was at the past company, we were actually looking to get out of hardscapes. And this job that I got, started my business, it wasn't a signed job yet, but it was a job that we were going to do at my old company. And we had pretty much dropped out of hardscapes, and I was to go tell all of the people I've been working with on designs and such that, hey, we're getting out of hardscapes. I'm sorry, but we're not able to do these jobs for you. So at that time, I was wanting to get out of my current job. So it just kind of wound up where I ended up taking this job, which they were pretty good friends of mine. So I was like, hey, our company is not doing hardscapes anymore, but the thing is, I'm going to my own business, so I can do this job for you. So it was kind of a interesting setup, and it's definitely not ideal, but I've been working with these people for probably 8 or 9 months on this design and this job, and I was selling this job for them. And so they had trust and faith in me, even though I told them, hey, I don't have any equipment, I don't have any money, I don't have any employees, but somehow we're going to get this job done for you. And so, you know, they had faith and trust in me, and we went after that job and knocked it out of the park. So, I mean, it was tough, obviously, but I mean, this isn't easy.
Absolutely, and that's really interesting, especially, you know, taking on this large scale job as your first project, and you know, having those customers have so much faith in you to deliver on that design. What would you say to somebody when they're starting their business and they're presented with this, you know, multi-month job? You know, what difficulties went into completing that job as your first project as a business, and would you recommend somebody to take on that, you know, considering they may not have even any employees to start off or the equipment to start off? Can you talk a little bit about that first job?
Yeah, so, I mean, I was definitely prepared for it. I mean, as a designer, you kind of know how things are laid out. Like, I'd never built a patio before until this project. So the project itself, it was actually a 4-level patio. It was probably 1,300 square feet. And we had a large outdoor kitchen, probably 15 by 15 L-shaped kitchen, sitting walls, we had lighting, we had so many things involved. I guess it was just tough. I mean, there was so many elements of it that made it really tough. But I mean, I'd wake up at 2:30 in the morning sometimes and like, oh my gosh, like my calculations were wrong by an inch. I was setting this too high. I mean, there were so many things going on in this job, let alone I didn't have any equipment, didn't have any money. I had a best friend of mine who was helping me 3 to 4 days a week. And, he had no experience. He didn't know what was going on. It was pretty much, hey, Rob, go grab the mini skid steer, pick up some rock, and bring me rock for like 4 or 5 hours. I'll sit here and rake it and push it where I need to. Obviously it took longer than I expected. Probably didn't make good money on it, but it was my first job. I mean, a lot of those things that, that went wrong on that job, I've definitely learned from. And obviously if it's going to be your first patio job, you want to take your time. You want to be slow. You want to make sure you're doing everything correct. And that was more the reason why it took a long time, besides not having equipment and not having good labor. But would I suggest somebody doing that? I mean, I guess how I started this answer off, I was going back to where I wouldn't say that I was learning on the customer's dime per se. I know a lot of guys will tell guys, oh, you shouldn't be learning that on the customer's dime. You need to go do like, maybe your mom's patio, your dad's patio. But really the only way you're going to know how to build a patio is to build a patio. Like you can't sit there in a classroom and learn this stuff and then, expect to just get it. So as long as you're taking your time, you're using the right materials, you've got we rented equipment and get the stuff to get it done, you're good. Fortunately, that set me up for success. That was my first project. And, so being able to show potential clients, hey, this is what our last project was. We built this huge patio. It's gorgeous, got a fire pit, kitchen, 30 or 40 lights in it. And so that's it's my baby project, I like to call it. It's definitely something I like to go and look at several times a year and check on and make sure it's good, looking nice and cleaned up and stuff.
Moving on from that first job, did things really start to snowball from there? Being able to have that as like a portfolio piece to, show and gain more clients, or how did you get more clients from that point on in your business?
Yeah, so I don't think that job specifically got me any more jobs that year. I think it was more of me having pictures of that job and showing customers, hey, this is what we can do. This is what we've done. But as far as how I got customers my first year in last year, it's pretty much going back to another one of my answers was, so when I started out, I pretty much told everybody that I knew that I'm getting into business. I mean, it was like if I was at church, I was telling people at church, hey, like I wasn't being annoying, but I was like, hey, I just started my own company, RC Outdoor. We specialize in patios, outdoor living areas, pretty much the whole experience of outdoor living. If I was at the nursery, if I was at this nursery, if I was at this dealer, like I remember sending the dealer, they have 4 or 5 people that work the front office, and just sending them pizza. Say, hey, this is for saying something nice about me to a customer that walked in, whatever, a couple weeks ago, whatnot. So I think just from telling everybody that I came in contact with, everybody that I talked to, somebody told somebody, and somebody told somebody, and that equated to, I think we got 6 more patio jobs that year to finish out the year. So that's kind of how I ended up getting more work that year. And then this year has been pretty much all the same thing. I mean, I'm pretty much getting customers now through either word of mouth, from past jobs that I've done, or people that I know who have said good things about me, or it's through Facebook or Instagram ads.
I want to start talking more, so, gaining the clients, and then the next step, I guess, would be, the process of selling that client on something. And obviously your designs speak for themselves, and your clients have something to look at that really draws them towards you. But in terms of your sales process, how, besides acquiring these clients, what's your strategy afterwards once they find out about RC Outdoor? Maybe they send you an email or they give you a call. Where do you take that from that first contact with the customer?
So pretty much, like when I went into business, I knew I wanted to be different from the rest of the guys in my area. I really wanted to set myself apart and just do unique, different stuff. So like a lot of the guys in my area, they all use Unilock or they use counting materials, and like nobody up here uses Techo-Block. So starting out the gate, I knew I wanted to be different. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to use this Techo-Block product just to be different. And ever since I've been using it, I'm kind of falling in love with it, and I just really like the material. So I guess when somebody contacts me and they know about me and we either talk on the phone or set up a meeting, I try to point out the fact that, hey, like we're different. Like you're going to get a different experience with us, whether it be a different design or it's going to be a different interaction, like with myself, because I'm the owner. I'm also the laborer. I'm the foreman, I'm the designer, I'm everything. So I like to be able to go in and tell them, hey, like I'm the owner, but I'm also going to be on site every day. I'm the laborer. I'm the guy that drives the machine. I'm the guy that digs this hole. So I think it helps when you go and tell a homeowner that, hey, I'm going to be here the whole time. You're dealing with me the whole time. And I like to be able to design something that, whether they've had designers in their house before or not, I like to come in with something different, something unique, something that they've never seen before. And I think and I hope to catch their eye and just kind of be amazed at, of what we can do with their backyard, because people can't visualize stuff. So, I go in with a three-dimensional design. We've got a video walkthrough of the site, and I usually give them 2 or 3 different options. One being like a plain design, because some people don't like, I've done some pretty crazy inlays this year. Some people just don't like that, and that's fine. So I give them a simple design and maybe like a middle design, and then number 3 is like outside the box. So I go in with that. I go in with a nice walkthrough, hoping to amaze them. And that's kind of my favorite part of the whole thing, is setting your laptop up and push and play, and then kind of standing back and watching them, watch your design come to life in there. So that's kind of how I like to take that next step when they call us and we go meet with them, and we'll bring samples as well. I try to get as much information from them as possible. I think people like it when, like, I hate to go in and like sell somebody something. I like to be asking questions, have them talk, have them let me know what they want, and then try to get as much done at that first meeting as possible. So kind of went everywhere with that question, but that's kind of what I like to bring to the table when I meet with customers after they contact me for the first time.
For sure. So you've got samples in hand. You're prepared to ask them questions in that initial consultation. What kind of questions are you asking them in order to take back and create a design for them? Like, what are you, obviously your designs, they speak for themselves, and they're, incredible. And the different aspects of your design are, beautiful, and your inlays and everything. But how do you create a design like that for your customer? What questions are you asking them, and what information are you trying to draw out of them?
That's a good question. Because I don't think customers a lot of times know what they want. So I just try to ask them as many questions. I'm talking like basic stuff, like, hey, what do you intend to do with this space? How many people do you like to entertain? Do you have kids? How many kids? I don't really have a set list, but I kind of like to get an idea of feel, of what they want to do with the space, because I want to make it functional. I like to do interesting designs, but also, they want this space because they want to be able to use it. They want it to be functional. So I try to, best figure out what the size is of it. So if they've got, let's say they've got 2 kids, and maybe a 700 to 800 square foot patio would be decent, because we could do a fire pit here and do a seating here. And then I like to give them ballpark prices. It's like, hey, it's going to cost about X amount if we do about 800 square feet. And then kind of throw out ballpark numbers for seat wall, fire pits, etc. Because I don't want to go back and waste their time, waste my time, if it's not something that, that they want to spend on. But as far as a set amount of questions, I guess I just go from one question to the next and build off that. But really just like to get a general feel of how they want to use that space. And yeah, if I've got some samples, I've got catalogs. But the problem with that is I feel like if you give the customers too much information, too many decisions to make, they just get a little overwhelmed, and it just slows down the whole process. I mean, I feel like if they're going to hire me to come in and design a space and put me in charge of that, then they're going to be, in most cases, okay with materials, colors, and that sort of thing. I've learned that the hard way when I give people samples, and I'm sitting here waiting weeks and months for decisions, and it's overwhelming. You give them a Techo-Block catalog, and there's 67 types of materials in there. So that's kind of how I like to keep it when we're asking questions, and I just try to pull as much information as I can out of them, just to figure out and learn what they want with this space.
And you talked a little bit about, not providing all the choices to the customer and overwhelming them, but maybe do you have certain products that you lean your customers towards, or do new products come on the market that you think this is going to go perfect in my design that I have in mind for them? And then also getting into different aspects of an outdoor living space. When you create a design, do you incorporate everything, like a fire pit, like an outdoor island, seat walls, or do you ask them specifically which ones they want, and then create the design, or do you design this outdoor living space with all these different aspects and then delete them as you see fit when you talk to the customer afterwards?
Yeah, so as far as the samples, I like to bring some. I like to show them so they can feel it and look at it. I just bring over a couple just to get into a little feel of colors, and I'll bring some for get a little feel of the textures and kind of what's going on. But I'll usually bring maybe 3 or 4 products with me from there. And as far as throwing these elements into a design, if they don't want a fire pit and they tell me they don't want one, then I'm not going to throw a fire pit in. And with when I give 2 or 3 different design options, if they don't request that they want lighting on one of them, I'm going to throw in lighting into the space and show them how dynamic lighting can look in that space. And that program I use, it's Real-Time Landscape Architect. You can turn the lights off in the software, and the lights really pop and really bling. So customers, they don't know what they don't know. And so if you can show them that, then I think it can be a huge upsell for you. And if they don't want a kitchen, I'm not going to put a kitchen in, because I would design a space knowing that they wanted a kitchen to put a kitchen in there. So usually I'm just kind of getting to feel what they want and designing to their needs. Because, we'll do basic patios where we're not putting any sort of fire pit, kitchen, seat wall in. So if they just want a plain 20 by 15 patio, then in that case, we'll just give them a 20 by 15 patio.
And when it comes to the initial consultation and creating a design and all this extra work that goes into, meeting with the customer before a job is even signed up, do you charge for, your initial consultation? Do you charge for the design and then sign up the customer? Or at that point, is the customer pretty much like, going ahead with what you got for them?
Yeah, so I don't charge for consults. I don't think I'm at a point where I can do that. I'm still a year and a half into my business. I'm still trying to get my name into the area, so I don't know if I'll ever be at a point where I'll charge for consults. I don't know. I just don't know what the future holds on that. And also, I didn't used to charge for designs because I wasn't getting many jobs at the beginning, and so it didn't cost me anything to go spend an extra 3 or 4 hours on a design, at the risk that I may not get that job. That's something you just have to do if you're new in business. So, now I'm charging for designs. I started probably 3 or 4 months ago charging for designs. And because I did waste my time on a lot of designs last year, but I think that's just the price you have to pay when you get into business. But I think now, my name's out there. I've got a good portfolio. We're doing some pretty interesting and cool work. We've got some good looking stuff on Instagram and Facebook. So I'd definitely say that I'm legit, and I'm able to prove to somebody that I'm legit. hence why we're starting to charge for designs. But yeah, just designs and not consult at this time.
Yeah, and I think that's really smart, especially when you're first starting out, that you're able to create a value proposition for your customer to go with you, and to that the fact that you've chosen something that you're able to throw in for free for them is really a drawing aspect to go with you, especially when you're first starting out. You talked a little bit about TechoBlock and how much you like using the TechoBlock product, and I've seen in your Instagram stories before that you've been slightly short on a few pieces of Squadra. And in that situation, luckily somebody bailed you out and shipped you some, which was incredible. But what is it about TechoBlock products that makes you want to incorporate them into your designs?
That's a good question. I guess I need to be careful what I say on it. I'm sure somebody's going to hear this one day. But I mean, really, I love Unilock and I love TechoBlock. Unilock's kind of what I used to use in the past, and when I went into business, I really wanted to differentiate myself, and so nobody's using TechoBlock. So my dealer just started carrying TechoBlock because I wanted to use it last year for me. And I guess I like to work with it because they've got a lot of cool small inlay options for pavers. They just have a wide variety. I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to do modern or rustic, temporary. There's so many different elements make up the whole TechoBlock line. I mean, for me, Unilock is actually expensive in my area. I mean, we're talking $3 and $4 a square foot for some of the similar pavers that TechoBlock would carry. So I guess it just comes down to wanting to be different, and also it is a little bit more expensive to use Unilock, so I want to go with TechoBlock in most cases. And then I guess going off of that, since I've been using it, I guess it's just become like, second nature just to keep using it. And I got these little weird designs I've written down, sketchbooks and all that stuff. And their products are modular, which is kind of cool because you can do four Squadras makes up like a valet paver. And then however many valet pavers make up like a piece of the Blue Grande. So you're able to do some pretty cool stuff with it without having to make a lot of cuts because they make their products fit together, naturally when you're building to save on labor costs in the end. Like Antica, you're able to cut out an area and just lay Antica with no cuts. So, and I think that's what I'm trying to integrate into my designs is I'm trying to cut back on labor, trying to use products and inlays that will save us some time in the installation. We've done some crazy inlays this year that took us so long. There was so much work involved. We were cutting for days. My back hurt, but I think at the end of the day, it was totally worth it. But looking ahead, I'm trying to use stuff that makes sense and stuff that's easier on us to install. So kind of all over the board with that answer, but I think TechoBlock is kind of my first option. I've used other stuff in the past. I mean, I've done several Unilock jobs with my business as well, and it really just depends on the customer at the end of the day, what kind of fits their needs and what kind of style they like. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't say that I'm sure I favor TechoBlock a little bit. If the customer wants a unique, something different than TechoBlock, then Unilock's going to be kind of my fallback plan.
Now, when you're landing a job and you've signed up a job, what do you do with your payment plan structures? I know this is something that a lot of people talk about in the industry in terms of taking payments, payment up front, payment maybe in the middle somewhere with, there's so many different payment structures. What's your payment structure like, and does it vary from job to job?
Yeah, I would say that it varied from job to job, and I've changed it up going into next year. Obviously, we would take a design fee, and then once the contract is signed, and then we'll take somewhere between 10 and 15% of the total price once the contract is signed, and that holds your place in line. And then next payment draw would be day one of the project, where I would probably be taking anywhere between 40 and 50% more on day one. So that gets us to about 65% in on day one of the job. And then depending on how big the job is, I mean, I really like to get paid every 2 weeks if possible. So 2 weeks after day one, I would say, hey, you owe me another 15%. And I really would like to get to the point where at the end of the day, the customer only owes me about 10% of the final. Just had some issues this year with cash flow and where I wasn't collecting enough money. And because I'm a small business, if we're on one job for 2 months, and that's all the money I've got. I don't have anybody else out there that's doing more work and collecting money. So I think the more money that I can collect up front, which helps me in the end, and helps me throughout the jobs to have money in the bank to pay guys, pay for materials, stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think that's going to work out for me. But like I said, it could change job to job. But I think as long as you're paying yourself, and you can, I know there's a lot of states where you can only take, I think, 50% up front and 50% in the end. But where I'm at, I'm able to do whatever I want. And I haven't really had any issues with customers saying, oh, I shouldn't be paying you this much. I pretty much just set the rules on that, and they've been pretty easy to abide by that so far.
Now, Richard, I like talking about the horror stories in being a business owner, whether that's dealing with a customer or a problem on a job site. You know, I like going in this direction with these interviews because it really helps others plan to minimize these problems that will show up on any job site or dealing with any customer. Do you have a horror story or, you know, a really bad experience with a customer or on a job site that you'd want to share?
Oh, man. Yeah, I've had a pretty bad one. Yeah, I'll say that I wasn't prepared. Didn't have my contract set up how it should be. And I think every contractor's had a horror story. And I think that's how we learn, right? I think we've been taken advantage of in the past, or we haven't been paid on time, or so many things happen in our life and in our business that we kind of learn from that horror story or that bad situation. So, I mean, yeah, there was a big job, and the customer, he was, as you can see, I'm trying to choose my words wisely here, but it was a real pain in the butt. I mean, it brought a lot of stress to my family, to myself, to my employees, who I try to keep out of it, but it was a daily thing. So it's like I had to talk to somebody about it. It ended up being my employees, but I think I came out on top from that. Definitely not from a financial standpoint. I definitely underbid the job a lot as well, but I would say that I learned like so much from that experience that like you can't buy that knowledge that I learned. You can't just learn that in a book somewhere. So I think from there, I definitely corrected a lot of things that I was doing. Started asking a lot of smart people questions, you know, about business or contracts or just, hey, how should I handle this situation in the future if it happens? You know, I've gotten a lawyer involved. So I would say that, yeah, it was a bad experience, but I definitely learned from it. I've moved on from it. I've got some awesome pictures from that project, and I would say that I'm in a much better place now if that were to happen again. So as much as I would love to tell you all this stuff that happened, I just want to maybe avoid from getting too in-depth in it. That's actually a great question. And I think I look forward to hearing other people's responses to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally understand not wanting to get too in depth into those things, but I definitely think that so many people can, you know, learn from other people's mistakes and either prepare them for when they're in that situation or at least, you know, put some things into place to minimize those problems showing up for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Richard, I'll just, you know, give you this question because I've had you on for quite a bit of time, and I definitely have two questions that I want to ask you to close up this interview. But is there any installation talking points that you want to get into? Anything in terms of installation that you'd want to talk about?
I could go anywhere with that question, but I get a lot of questions on Instagram. I guess people asking me, hey, how did you get into this business so fast? how did you learn how to build an outdoor kitchen? How did you learn how to build a pergola? And I think that the only way you learn it is just to do it. I know it's totally cliche, and I tell all these guys that, but you're not going to learn how to build a patio unless you go out and build a patio. Like I didn't know how to build a pergola until I built the pergola. And I think as long as you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Like I had no clue how to build. Like we put in pool coping for the first time this year. I didn't have a clue, but when the customer asked for it, I said, well, heck yeah, we can do that. And I knew in my head I was going to find a way to do it. So I called up a couple of guys in pools and picked their brains, for as much as I could. Just any question I could think of, I was just, hey, this. As long as you're not afraid to ask questions and learn and learn new stuff, like you can pretty much install anything. We're going to start building decks next year. I don't have a clue how to build a deck right now, but we're going to figure it out. I mean, I'm doing lots of research and reading into all these new installations and new techniques and codes in my area. So I just think that you're not going to learn how to do anything unless you just go out and do it. I mean, just like your business, you're not going to learn how to do business unless you go out and do it and experience business. So maybe not the way you want to go with that, but that's kind of how I thought as far as installation. I mean, as far as installing anything, I mean, I've learned a ton on YouTube. I've learned a ton on Instagram. Following so many guys on the gram has kind of really changed my whole perspective on this industry, and it's changed my business completely. But anything out there, it's there for the taking. The information's out there. So, I don't mind answering people's questions on installation techniques, and how I built whatever. So I'm trying to do a lot of stories. I just started doing stories 4 or 5 months ago, trying to help guys and kind of showing them how I learned to do it, and techniques and different ways that I install, whatever element that we're installing on site.
Now, I've seen a couple times on your stories you talking about, certain tools that some hardscapers may not have on their job site readily available, these specialty tools. For example, Pave Tools, the many different tools that Pave Tool has on the market. Is there any tool that you recently found out about that you live by now on your job site?
Yes. So that would be the Zip Level. The Zip Level, I use it for everything. Like I haven't pulled out my laser level one time this year. I use that so when I'm excavating, I'm using that to set down and make sure I'm digging at the right heights. When I'm laying my base, 3/4 inch clean stone, I'm using my Zip Level. I'm using my Zip Level to set my screed bars. Using it for everything elevation wise on site. That has literally been my go-to. Anything else? I mean, obviously I don't own much equipment. I do own a mini skid steer, a little ditch witch, and that thing has definitely saved my back on a number of times on projects. So as long as you have some sort of machine you can rent and to bring in stone, to move dirt, I mean, that's definitely, you have to have it. You can't just dig out a patio. And I'm trying to think of any other specific tools that I would highly recommend. I mean, I have some of the Pave Tool products or their tools. None of them are coming to my head. But the thing is, there are so many tools in the industry. You can never stop buying. I mean, I like to buy tools that increase our quality. I really want our quality to show in our cuts and our curves. So any products that I can get to improve that, and obviously our efficiency as well, then that's going to be something that I want to buy.
A couple more questions rounding out this interview. You talked a little bit about picking people's brains and just, reaching out there and asking questions and just learning as much as you can. Do you have any mentors or people online that you've networked with that you draw inspiration from, that you'd want to give a shout out to for other people to, look at them and gain knowledge from them?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely guys that I would say that inspire me design-wise. There's 3 guys in particular that even before I started my business, I was following these guys, and something about the jobs they were doing just stood out, and I knew I kind of wanted to be like them. One of the guys was Sean at Premier Outdoor, which everybody knows about him. Dan Wasson at Wasson Nursery. and then Dan Preston at Preston Hardscape Design. That's the route I wanted to go. If you see their stuff, you see their projects, you can see a lot of what I do in the stuff that they have done in the past. And there's tons of guys that I've actually talked on the phone with. I mean, I've talked to Dan Wasson on the phone a couple of times. Me and Sean are pretty close. We've talked several times about business and kind of the way he does things. I hate to start naming names because there's so many guys that I've sat down and talked to about business that have totally changed my business and thus changed my life. I mean, I'm a part of a business group. It's called the Masterminds. This Masterminds group was put on by Jack Kelly at Imagine Design Build, which I'm sure if you're on Instagram, you see the shout outs to the Masterminds. Jack talks about it a lot. If I'm going to give a shout out, I'm going to give a shout out to that group because that group has put me in contact with all these people that I've mentioned and has really developed just a group of guys who are really serious about business and serious about making themselves better, whether it be making their business better or their marriage better or making themselves better as a person. And this group has totally changed my life. I mean, I've got people that I could call up. Hey, I'm in a situation. Hey, Sean, what do you think? I'm looking at this. I'm not sure what to do here. What would you do? I mean, there's definitely a really cool camaraderie that we have in that group. I will say it's a paid group. You have to pay to be in it, but I think that it makes it a serious group. Like, we're not posting pictures of our projects and asking people to comment on it and like it and to fall in love with what we've done. You know, it's pretty much a group of guys who are talking about business and talking about numbers. And I think the two things I've really gotten from this group is how to think outside the box as far as how to make money, and whether that goes from paid consults, paid designs, or it's ordering 2,000 boxwoods from a nursery and saving yourself $2,000, or it's I can go on and on and on. I just feel like I'm always thinking about what I want to do with my business and how I want it to change and how I want it to evolve by stuff that these guys in this group are saying. There's guys that have been doing this business for 15, 20 years. There's guys in this group that have just started their business and ask a bunch of questions, and that's cool. So if I'm going to give one big shout out, it's to the Masterminds group that Jack has put on. Has totally changed the way I do business, and I would definitely say that I would not be here without them. Like we've mentioned the horror story. You know, I shared with the group that horror story, and they pretty much came out in droves and supported me and said, hey, man, we've been there. Like, you just went through Business 101 and 201 and 301 and 401, all in that little project you just did. So, yeah, it's been a lot to me. I mean, you think about it, I don't know many people in this area. I've been here 5 years. There's not companies that I can pick up the phone and say, hey, how much are you charging for a patio? Or, hey, what should I do with this part of my contract? Like, I just feel like there's so much competition there everywhere you look that, you know, this group isn't really about competition. It's here to help us, you know, as business owners, as designers, as people, and has definitely generated a really cool camaraderie around a bunch of these guys in this industry.
Rounding out this interview, I've got one last question for you, and I'm sure as any business owner would, you've learned a lot since becoming a business owner and as a hardscaper and all that. But what's that one thing that you know now that you wish you would have known from the very beginning? That one piece of advice you'd want to give somebody that you wish you'd known from the very start when you started your business?
I wish I would have known what my full cost was to own a business. I got thrown out there building patios, got busy so fast that I was only concerned about building patios and then just totally forgot about the business side of it and the making the money side of it, which is like half of it, right? So I think if I would have known what my true cost was, you know, I'm talking like overhead, you know, how much taxes was going to be, or, you know, hey, it's going to cost you $45,000 to have your doors open for a full year. So that means you should be charging X dollars an hour, or you should have your numbers at this point. So It's one thing I wish I would have known better back in time. I mean, I've made a little bit of money. I wouldn't say I've made a lot of money. I mean, I've made enough money to where I can take the winters off right now and, stay home with my kids, which is awesome. But definitely knowing your full costs, and it's hard. Like, how do you know what your budget's going to be when you haven't really had a full year to base it off of? So I've learned that, and now I know where my numbers should be, and I'm charging, appropriately now. So, but I don't think I could get to this point without not charging enough to know how to charge enough. So that's one thing I would say I wish I knew a little bit better when I first started.
Richard, it's been a pleasure talking with you this past 45 minutes here. It's been amazing to follow along your Instagram and to, see the projects that you've got coming out and, the stories that you post. Where would you point our audience to see more about everything that you've got going on over there at RC Outdoor?
Yeah, so pretty much I'm putting everything that we do, all of our content is all on Instagram. I started doing stories, like I said, 4 or 5 months ago. Sean over at Premier Outdoor trying to talk me into it, and doing selfie stories where it shows his face, and I really think it helps customers kind of fall in love with you per se if you're doing a good job of it. So that's kind of where I want to push that side and push more of the stories and kind of give more walkthroughs of my stuff. I mean, I'll put it occasionally on Facebook, a little bit on my website. But if you're interested in RC Outdoor, want to know what we're doing, Instagram is definitely the place we're putting all of our stuff at.